The Great Hall of Valora Prime Space Station was filled with beings from 12 different star systems. Some had scales that shined like diamonds. Others had skin the color of deep ocean water. A few floated in special tanks because they could not breathe normal air. All of them had come for one reason: the Galactic Biology Symposium, the most important scientific meeting in the known universe. Park Jun stood at the edge of the stage, waiting for his turn to speak. He was the human ambassador, a tall man with kind eyes and a calm voice. He had been in space for 3 years now, meeting aliens and learning their ways. But today was different. Today, he had to explain something about humans that he knew would cause confusion. The Valorian who spoke before him finished her presentation about the breeding cycles of her people. Like most species in the galaxy, Valorians could only have children during a special season that came once every 4 years. Their bodies would change, their hormones would activate, and for a brief window of 60 days, they could reproduce. Then the window would close, and they would wait another 4 years. This was normal. This was how life worked across the galaxy. Every intelligent species had a breeding season. Some came every year, some every 5 years, some every 10. But all of them had a season. All of them had a cycle. It was considered a basic law of biology. June walked to the center of the stage. The lights were bright, and thousands of alien eyes watched him. He took a deep breath and began his presentation. "Good morning," he said. "I am Park Jun, representing Earth and the human species. Today, I will share data about human population growth and reproductive patterns." He pressed a button, and numbers appeared on the giant screen behind him. Birth rates, population statistics, demographic charts. The aliens watched with mild interest. This was supposed to be routine. "As you can see," June continued, "human births occur throughout the entire year. We have no specific breeding season. Our reproductive capability is continuous." The hall went quiet. Not the quiet of boredom, but the quiet of confusion. June saw aliens looking at each other, whispering in languages he did not understand. A voice cut through the silence. "Your data must be corrupted." June looked toward the voice. It came from the royal viewing box, where the most important guests sat. A young woman stood there. Though she was not human, her skin was pale lavender, and her hair was silver like starlight. Her eyes were large and golden, and they looked at June with sharp intelligence. She was Princess Lyra of the Valorian Empire, daughter of the High Queen, and one of the most famous scientists in the galaxy. She was known for her brilliant mind and her bold nature. She was also known for never accepting anything without proof. "I apologize," June said politely. Lyra walked down from the viewing box, her long robes flowing behind her. The crowd parted for her as she approached the stage. She was not being rude. In Valorian culture, challenging a presenter was considered a sign of respect. It meant you were taking their work seriously. "I said your data must be corrupted," Lyra repeated. She stepped onto the stage and stood beside June, looking at the numbers on the screen. "No species reproduces continuously. It is biologically impossible. The energy requirements alone would be devastating. Your bodies would burn out within a generation." June smiled softly. He had expected this reaction. "With respect, Princess, the data is accurate. Humans have no fixed mating season. We can reproduce at any time of year, in any climate, at almost any age after maturity." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted questions. Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others looked worried, as if June had said something dangerous. Lyra raised her hand, and the hall went quiet again. She had that kind of power. "Ambassador Park," she said slowly, "do you understand what you are claiming? You are saying that humans can produce offspring without seasonal triggers, without hormonal cycles tied to planetary rotation, without environmental activation." "Yes," June said simply. "That would make humans the only known species with this ability." "I am aware." Lyra studied his face. She was looking for signs of deception, but she found none. June was telling the truth. Or at least he believed he was telling the truth. "Then you will not mind if I verify this personally," Lyra said. It was not a question. June blinked. "Verify how?" "I will travel to Earth. I will observe your species directly. I will study your reproductive patterns with my own eyes and my own instruments." Lyra turned to face the crowd. 2-3. If Ambassador Park is correct, this will be the greatest biological discovery of our era. If he is wrong, we will expose a dangerous lie. The crowd murmured in excitement. A Valorian princess studying humans? It was unprecedented. June thought for a moment. This could be good for humanity. If Lyra confirmed their biology, it would raise human status in the galactic community. Humans were still considered a young species, barely worth attention. This could change everything. "Earth welcomes you, Princess," June said with a bow. "We have nothing to hide." Lyra looked at him with her golden eyes. There was curiosity there, but also doubt. She had studied biology her entire life. She had examined hundreds of species across dozens of worlds. She knew how reproduction worked, and everything she knew told her that June was wrong. Humans could not possibly reproduce year-round. It broke every rule. It defied every pattern. It was simply not how life worked. But as she looked at the human ambassador, standing calmly under the lights, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Uncertainty. What if she was the one who was wrong? The thought excited her more than she wanted to admit. Lyra loved being right, but she loved discovery even more. If humans truly had this ability, it would change everything scientists knew about biology, evolution, and the limits of life itself. "Prepare your world, Ambassador," Lyra said. "I will arrive within 1 lunar cycle, and I will find the truth." June nodded. "The truth is all we ask for, Princess." As Lyra walked out of the Great Hall, her mind was already racing with questions. How did humans sustain constant reproduction? How did their societies handle unlimited population growth? How did their bodies not collapse from the strain? She did not know the answers yet, but she would find them, and somewhere deep in her heart, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, the universe was stranger and more wonderful than she had ever imagined. The symposium continued, but no one paid attention to the other presentations. Everyone was talking about the same thing: the human claim, and the princess who would test it. On the stage, Park Jun gathered his materials and smiled to himself. He had done his job. Now, it was up to Earth to show the galaxy what humanity truly was. He hoped they were ready. The Valorian shuttle descended through the clouds above Seoul. Princess Lyra pressed her face close to the window, like a child seeing snow for the first time. Below her, a city of millions spread out in every direction. Towers of glass and steel reached toward the sky. Rivers of cars flowed through streets that never seemed to end. And everywhere, there were people. "So many," Lyra whispered. "How can there be so many?" Her assistant, a quiet Valorian named Tova, checked her tablet. "Earth's population is approximately 8 billion, Princess. This city alone holds nearly 10 million. Lyra shook her head in disbelief. Her entire home planet had only 2 billion people. They had lived there for 50,000 years. Humans had reached 8 billion in just a few centuries of modern growth. The numbers made no sense unless their reproductive claims were true. The shuttle landed at a private area of Incheon Airport. A small group of humans waited on the ground. Lyra recognized Ambassador Park Jun at the front. Beside him stood 2 others: a woman in a white coat and a young man with a friendly smile. Lyra stepped off the shuttle, and the warm earth air touched her skin. It was autumn here, she had been told. A season between hot and cold. On Valora, this would be deep in the dormant period, when no one even thought about reproduction. But as she looked around, she saw nothing dormant. The world was alive and moving. "Welcome to Earth, Princess Lyra," June said with a bow. "May I introduce Dr. Kim Yuna, Professor of Reproductive Biology at Seoul National University. She will be your scientific partner during your stay." The woman in the white coat stepped forward. She was middle-aged, with short hair and smart eyes behind thin glasses. She bowed in the Korean style, and Lyra returned the gesture. "It is an honor, Princess," Yuna said. "I have prepared full access to our research facilities. Whatever you need to see, we will show you." Lyra nodded. "I appreciate your openness, Doctor. I must warn you, I am here to find the truth, whatever it may be. I will not accept anything without evidence." Yuna smiled. "I would expect nothing less from a scientist." June gestured to the young man beside him. "This is Han Dae. He will be your cultural liaison. If you want to understand how ordinary humans live, he will be your guide." Han Dae bowed deeply. He was young, perhaps 25 in human years, with an easy smile and bright eyes. "I am not a scientist," he admitted. "I am just a normal person. But I can show you normal life, if that helps." Lyra studied him. In her experience, normal life often revealed more truth than any laboratory. "Thank you, Mr. Han. I look forward to learning from you." The group traveled by car into the city. Lyra watched through the window as Seoul passed by. Every street corner had people. Every building had lights. Every moment seemed to pulse with activity. "Where are we going first?" Lyra asked. "To your residence," June explained. "A hotel near the university. But we can stop anywhere you like. Is there something you want to see?" Lyra thought for a moment. "A maternity hospital," she said, "where babies are born." The car changed direction. 20 minutes later, they arrived at a large white building with the words Seoul Family Hospital on the front. Lyra stepped out and stared at the entrance. Families walked in and out. Some women had swollen bellies, some couples carried tiny bundles wrapped in blankets. "How many babies are born here each day?" Lyra asked. "On average, about 30 to 40, Yuna answered. "Per day?" "Yes." Lyra felt her heart beat faster. "And this is just one hospital? There are dozens of maternity hospitals in Seoul alone. Hundreds across the country. Thousands across the world." Lyra did the math in her head. If even half of these hospitals delivered 30 babies per day, the numbers were astronomical. On Valora, the entire planet might see a few thousand births during a breeding season. Here, it seemed to happen constantly, endlessly, without pause. "Show me inside," Lyra said. They entered the hospital with special permission. A nurse named Choi Mina met them and led them through the halls. The walls were painted soft colors. The sound of babies crying came from every direction. Nurses hurried past with charts and bottles. Parents sat in waiting rooms, some nervous, some joyful. "This way," Mina said, leading them to a window that looked into the nursery. Lyra stopped breathing. Behind the glass, rows of small beds held newborn babies. Some were sleeping. Some were waving tiny fists. Some were crying with all the strength in their small bodies. There were at least 20 of them, all born within the last day. "These babies," Lyra said slowly. "They were born this week?" "Most were born today," Mina said. "A few yesterday. They will go home with their parents soon." "Today," Lyra repeated. "And tomorrow? There will be more?" "Yes. Every day." Lyra placed her hand on the glass. On Valora, a single birth was a celebration for an entire community. A family might have one child every 20 years, if they were lucky. The breeding season came, and everyone tried, and some succeeded. And then, the long wait began again. But here, babies arrived like sunrise, constant, reliable, endless. "I need to sit down," Lyra said. Day quickly found her a chair. Yuna brought her water. Lyra sat in the hospital hallway, her mind struggling to accept what her eyes had seen. "You are not lying," she said finally. "This is real. We would not lie about something so important," June said gently. "But how?" Lyra looked up at them, her golden eyes filled with confusion. "How does your species sustain this? Your women must be exhausted. Your resources must be stretched thin. Your social systems must be collapsing." Yuna sat beside her. "It is not easy," she admitted. "We have challenges. But we have also developed ways to manage. Birth control allows us to plan when we have children. Medicine helps mothers stay healthy. Society has built systems to support families. It is difficult, but it works. Birth control, Lyra repeated. The concept was strange to her. On Valora, you either had a breeding season, or you did not. There was nothing to control. We can choose when to have children, Yuna explained. We can wait until we are ready. We can decide how many we want. We have control over our own biology. Lyra stared at her. You can start reproduction whenever you want. And you can stop it whenever you want. Yes, that is not just continuous reproduction. That is mastery of reproduction. Yuna smiled softly. We are still learning. But yes, we have come far. Lyra stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but her mind was sharp. Everything she had believed about biology was being rewritten in front of her eyes. Humans were not primitive. They were not limited. They were perhaps the most reproductively advanced species in the galaxy, and no one had known. I need to see more, Lyra said. I need to understand how this affects your daily life. How your people live with this ability. Quote, Day stepped forward. I can show you, Princess. My family, my friends, ordinary people, living ordinary lives. Would that help? Lyra looked at the young human with new respect. Yes, Mr. Han, that would help very much. As they left the hospital, Lyra looked back one more time at the building, where new life arrived every single day. She had come to Earth to expose a lie. Instead, she was discovering a truth that would change everything, and she was only beginning. The coffee shop was warm and busy. Students typed on laptops. Business people talked on phones. An old couple shared a piece of cake near the window. Han Day sat across from Princess Lyra, watching her watch everyone else. You are staring, Day said with a gentle smile. I am observing, Lyra corrected. But she knew he was right. She had been staring at humans for 3 days now, and she still could not understand what she was seeing. That couple, she said quietly, pointing to a young man and woman at a nearby table. They were sitting close together, holding hands, laughing at something on the man's phone. What are they doing? Day looked over. They are on a date, I think. Getting to know each other. Maybe they will become boyfriend and girlfriend. A date, Lyra repeated. Courtship behavior. If you want to call it that, yes. But it is autumn. Your planet is moving toward winter. This is not. She struggled to find the right words. This is not a reproductive time. Day laughed softly. Princess, any time is a reproductive time for humans. We do not wait for seasons. When we meet someone we like, we spend time with them. If things go well, we become a couple. If things go very well, we might get married and have children. The season does not matter. Lyra felt dizzy again. She had been feeling dizzy a lot since arriving on Earth. On Valora, courtship only happened during the breeding season. Your body would change, hormones would activate, and suddenly you noticed potential mates. For 60 days, you would feel attraction, desire, the pull toward partnership. Then the season would end, and those feelings would fade. You would return to normal life, thinking about work, science, art, anything but reproduction. The cycle was natural. The cycle was comfortable. The cycle made sense. But humans felt these things all the time, every day, every season, their entire lives. How do you get anything done? Lyra asked seriously. If you are always thinking about this. Day considered the question. We learn to balance. Love is important, but so is work, family, friends, hobbies. We do not think about romance every moment, but it is always possible. The door is always open. The door is always open. Lyra wrote that phrase in her notebook. It seemed to capture something essential about humans. Later that day, Day took her to meet his family. They lived in a comfortable apartment, in a quiet neighborhood. His parents welcomed Lyra with warm smiles and too much food. His younger brother, who was 17, barely looked up from his video game, and his older sister, Han Su, was there with her husband. Su was 30 years old, with the same friendly eyes as her brother. Her husband, a calm man named Jin, worked as an accountant. They had been married for 4 years. "Do you have children?" Lyra asked politely during dinner. "Not yet," Su said. "But we are trying now. We wanted to wait until we were stable. Good jobs, nice apartment, some savings. Now we feel ready." Lyra set down her chopsticks. She was still learning to use them. "You can decide when you are ready?" "Of course," Su said. "We used birth control for the first few years. Now we have stopped, and we are hoping for a baby. And if it does not happen this month, then we try again next month. And the month after that. It can take time. But we are not worried." Lyra's mind raced. Su and Jin had been married for 4 years. On Valora, that meant they would have experienced only one breeding season. One chance. If it did not work, they would wait 4 more years and try again. Many couples only had 1 or 2 chances in their entire lives, but Su and Jin had unlimited chances. Every single month. If one did not work, another would come. And another. And another. The pressure was completely different. The experience was completely different. "You do not feel urgency?" Lyra asked. Su shook her head. "We have time. We are still young. If it takes a year, that is fine. If it takes 2 years, that is also fine. We will become parents when it happens." Jin nodded. "My brother and his wife tried for 3 years before they had their son. Now he is 5. And they are thinking about having another one. There is no rush. No rush." Another phrase for Lyra's notebook. Humans lived without the desperate urgency that defined Valorian reproduction. They did not have to succeed in a tiny window. They could take their time, plan their lives, and trust that the opportunity would always be there. After dinner, Day walked Lyra through the neighborhood. The evening was cool and pleasant. Families were out walking dogs. Children played in a small park. An older couple sat on a bench, watching the sunset. "That couple," Lyra said, pointing to the elderly pair. "How long have they been together?" Day asked them politely. They smiled and answered. 52 years, Day translated. Lyra stared at them. 52 years of partnership. 52 years of companionship. On Valora, couples often separated between breeding seasons. The feelings that brought them together would fade, and they would drift back to their separate lives. Long-term pair bonding was rare, but humans stayed together for decades. Through every season, through every year, through joy and sadness, youth and age. Their connections were not temporary sparks but permanent flames. "Do all humans mate for life?" Lyra asked. "Not all," Day admitted. "Some relationships end. Some people choose to stay single. But many do find partners and stay with them forever. It depends on the person." "Choice," Lyra murmured. "Everything comes back to choice." "I suppose it does." That night, Lyra sat in her hotel room and wrote a long report to the Valorian Science Council. She described everything she had seen: the constant courtship, the planned reproduction, the long-term bonding, the complete absence of seasonal limitation. She ended the report with a confession. "I came here to prove humans wrong. I am now certain that I was the one who was wrong. Human reproductive biology is unlike anything we have documented. They have freedom that we cannot imagine. I recommend immediate expansion of this research." She sent the report and waited. The response came 2 days later. It was from the Council's senior biologist, a stern woman named Elder Voss. "Your findings are concerning," the message read. "You appear to be suffering from cultural contamination. Extended exposure to humans has compromised your scientific objectivity. We recommend you return home immediately for evaluation." Lyra read the message 3 times. Cultural contamination. They thought she had lost her mind. They thought the humans had somehow tricked her. She thought about returning home. She thought about giving up. She thought about accepting that she had been wrong to come here. Then she thought about Su and Jin. Planning their family with patience and hope, She thought about the old couple on the bench. Still in love, after 52 years, she thought about the babies in the hospital, arriving every single day. She was not contaminated. She was enlightened. Lyra wrote a simple reply. I will continue my research. The truth matters more than comfort. Then she closed her tablet and went to sleep, dreaming of a world where love never had to wait for a season. She had more to learn. And she was not leaving until she understood everything. The maternity ward of Seoul Central Hospital was the largest in the country. Dr. Kim Yuna had arranged special permission for Princess Lyra to spend an entire day there, observing the rhythm of human birth. Head nurse Choi Mina would be her guide. We deliver between 50 and 70 babies every day, Mina explained as they walked through the bright corridors. Some days more, some days less. But there is never a day with zero. Never? Lyra asked. Not in 20 years. Not since I started working here. Lyra tried to imagine a Valorian hospital that delivered babies every single day for 20 years. It was impossible. Their hospitals only opened maternity sections during breeding seasons. The rest of the time, those rooms sat empty, waiting for the next cycle. But here, everything was always in motion. Nurses hurried past with supplies. Doctors checked charts and made decisions. Families waited in hallways, some pacing nervously, some sitting quietly, some crying with joy. May I see a delivery? Lyra asked. It was a bold request. On Valora, birth was a private matter, witnessed only by close family. Mina hesitated. I will ask. Some mothers are comfortable with observers, especially if it helps science. An hour later, Lyra stood in a delivery room, wearing medical clothes and standing in the corner. The mother was a young woman named Baek Gina, 28 years old, having her second child. Her husband stood beside her, holding her hand. Lyra watched in silence as the doctors worked. She watched Gina struggle and push and cry out. She watched the husband whisper encouragement and wipe sweat from his wife's forehead. She watched the medical team move with practiced skill, supporting the mother through every moment. And then, after hours of effort, a baby was born. A tiny girl with a powerful voice, screaming her arrival to the world. The doctors placed her on Gina's chest, and the new mother began to cry. She is beautiful, Gina whispered. She is perfect. The husband leaned down and kissed his wife's forehead, then gently touched his daughter's hand. The baby gripped his finger with surprising strength. Lyra felt something she had not expected. Her eyes were wet. She was crying. On Valora, she had witnessed births before. They were celebrated events, rare and precious. But they were also tense, because everyone knew another chance might not come for years. There was joy, yes, but also relief that bordered on desperation. Here, there was only joy. Pure, simple, uncomplicated joy. This family would go home with their new daughter. They would raise her alongside their first child. And if they wanted more children someday, they could have them. No waiting, no uncertainty, no fear. Lyra stepped out of the delivery room and found a quiet corner to collect herself. Mina found her there a few minutes later. Are you all right, princess? Lyra wiped her eyes. I am fine. I did not expect to feel so much. Mina sat beside her. Birth is emotional. It does not matter how many times you see it. Every new life is a miracle. For you, it happens every day. Does it ever become ordinary? Mina smiled. Never. Every baby is different. Every family is different. Every story is different. The miracle never gets old. They walked through more of the hospital. Lyra saw the prenatal clinic, where pregnant women came for regular checkups. She saw the neonatal intensive care unit, where premature babies received special treatment. She saw the family planning office, where couples discussed their options with counselors. Some couples come here to help them have babies, Mina explained. Some come to prevent having babies. We support both. Prevention, Lyra said. You mean birth control? Yes. Many couples use it when they are not ready for children. Students, young professionals, people focusing on their careers. When they are ready, they stop using it and try to conceive. And it works? Most of the time. Modern medicine is very effective. Not perfect, but effective. Lyra added this to her growing understanding. Humans had not just evolved year-round reproduction. They had also developed technology to manage it. They could turn fertility on and off like a light switch. They had control that Valorians could only dream of. In the waiting room of the maternity ward, Lyra sat down to rest. A young man collapsed into the chair beside her, looking exhausted but incredibly happy. "Long day?" Lyra asked. The man laughed. "Long night. My daughter was born 3 hours ago. I have not slept, but I do not care. She is healthy. My wife is healthy. Everything is perfect. Congratulations. Is this your first child?" "Third, actually." He pulled out his phone and showed her pictures. "My son Tay is 5. My daughter Nara is 3. And now we have little Bomi." Lyra looked at the photos. 3 children. 3 different ages. She did the math in her head. "You had a child every 2 years?" "About that, yes. My wife wanted them close in age so they could grow up together. It was her plan from the beginning. Her plan." The phrase hit Lyra like a thunderbolt. This woman had planned her pregnancies, like appointments on a calendar. She had decided when to have each child, how far apart they would be, how many she wanted total. She had complete control over her family's future. On Valora, such planning was impossible. You had children when the breeding season allowed, if your body cooperated, if luck was on your side. Many couples wanted 3 children but only managed 1. Many couples wanted 1 child but had none at all. But this human woman had designed her family like an architect designs a building, and her husband had supported her plan, and together they had built exactly what they wanted. "May I ask," Lyra said carefully, "how you and your wife decided to have 3 children?" The man thought about it. "We talked about it a lot before we got married. We both came from big families. We liked the idea of a house full of kids. So we saved money, bought a bigger apartment, and started our family when we were ready. What if you had wanted to stop at 2? Then we would have stopped at 2. It was always our choice." Our choice. The phrase echoed in Lyra's mind. Choice. Everything about human reproduction came back to choice. When to start. When to stop. How many. How far apart. Humans had turned the most basic biological function into a matter of personal decision. Valorians had never had that luxury. Their biology controlled them. Their seasons dictated their lives. They were slaves to their cycles in a way that humans simply were not. The man stood up. "I should get back to my wife. Thank you for listening to a tired new father ramble. Thank you for sharing your story." After he left, Lyra sat alone in the waiting room for a long time. Around her, the hospital continued its endless work. More babies arrived. More families began. More miracles happened. She thought about her own life. She was 97 years old, young by Valorian standards. She had never had children. She had experienced many breeding seasons, but the timing had never been right. Wrong partner, wrong circumstances, wrong luck. She had accepted it as normal. Everyone accepted it as normal. That was simply how life worked. But what if it did not have to work that way? What if her people could learn from humans? What if Valorian science could find a way to extend their fertility? To give them more choices? To free them from the tyranny of seasons? For the first time since arriving on Earth, Lyra began to see her mission not as research but as hope. She was not just documenting human biology. She was finding a path to a better future for her own species. She stood up, filled with new purpose, and went to find Dr. Kim Yuna. There was much more work to do. Dr. Kim Yuna's laboratory was filled with screens, charts, and data that would have confused anyone who was not a scientist. But Princess Lyra understood all of it. She had spent 2 weeks studying human biology with the intensity of someone whose entire worldview had been shattered. "Let us review what we know," Yuna said, standing in front of a large display screen. Human female fertility operates on a monthly cycle, approximately 28 days. During each cycle, there is a window of about 6 days when conception is possible. 6 days per month, Lyra repeated. That gives 12 opportunities per year. Correct. Compare this to Valorian biology, which offers one window of 60 days every 4 years. That is, 15 days per year on average, Lyra calculated. We actually have more fertile days per year than humans. True. But your fertile days are concentrated into one short period. Then nothing for years. Humans have smaller windows, but they come every single month without fail. The consistency makes the difference. Lyra nodded slowly. She had been thinking about this for days. Valorians had intense breeding seasons, but the gaps between them were vast. Humans had smaller chances but constant opportunities. It was like comparing a single heavy rainfall to steady, gentle rain throughout the year. The total water might be similar, but the patterns created completely different results. There is another factor, Una continued. Human sexual behavior is not tied to fertility. We can and do engage in romantic activity throughout the entire month, not just during fertile periods. This serves important social and emotional functions beyond reproduction. Pair bonding, Lyra said. Constant intimacy strengthens your partnerships. Exactly. Couples who are intimate regularly tend to have stronger relationships. This creates stable families, which are better environments for raising children. Human reproduction is not just biological, it is social, Lyra wrote furiously in her notebook. Every detail mattered. Every piece of data was a potential key to helping her own species. Show me the statistics on family planning, she requested. Una pulled up new charts. In modern societies, most couples choose when to have children. They use birth control until they are ready. Then stop using it when they want to conceive. The average age of first-time mothers in Korea is now 33. 33? But human women begin fertility around 13 or 14. Yes. But education, careers, and financial stability have become priorities. People wait until they feel prepared. 20 years ago, the average was 26. 50 years ago, it was 22. The trend continues upward. Lyra found this remarkable. Humans were not just reproducing year-round. They were actively choosing to wait longer, to have fewer children, to prioritize quality over quantity. They had so much reproductive freedom that they could afford to be selective. And what happens if a couple cannot conceive naturally? Lyra asked. Una smiled. That is where it gets really interesting. She showed Lyra information about fertility treatments, hormone therapy, artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, surrogacy. Humans had developed dozens of methods to help couples who struggled to have children naturally. You can create life outside the body, Lyra said, staring at images of laboratory procedures. You can combine genetic material in a dish, and then implant it. We have been doing it successfully for over 50 years. Millions of children have been born this way. This is not just continuous reproduction. This is controlled creation. Una considered the phrase. I suppose it is. We have learned to work with biology rather than being controlled by it. When nature does not cooperate, we find another way. Lyra set down her notebook. Her hand was tired from writing, but her mind was electric with thoughts. Dr. Kim, I need you to understand something. On Valora, infertility is a tragedy that cannot be solved. If a couple cannot conceive during the breeding season, they simply cannot have children. There is no alternative. The window closes, and they must wait years for another chance. Many never succeed at all. Una's expression softened. I am sorry. That must be very difficult. It is accepted as normal. But it should not be normal. Not when solutions exist. Lyra gestured at the screens around them. Everything here, all of this knowledge, all of this technology, it could help millions of Valorians have the families they dream of. We would be happy to share our research. Anthropic cooperation has always been humanity's goal. Lyra stood and walked to the window. Outside, Seoul buzzed with life. People walked to work, drove cars, lived their ordinary lives. None of them knew how extraordinary their biology was. None of them understood what a gift they had been given. "You have mastered reproduction," Lyra said quietly. "You can start it, stop it, plan it, delay it, fix it when it breaks. You have more control over life itself than any species I have ever studied." "We still have limits," Yuna reminded her. "Women's fertility declines with age. Pregnancy carries risks. Genetic diseases still exist. We are not perfect. No, but you are free. That is what matters." Yuna joined her at the window. "Princess, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Have you ever wanted children?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment. "Yes. Many times. But the seasons were never right. The partners were never right. I was always too busy, or too young, or too focused on my work, and now I am 97, and I have begun to accept that it may never happen for me." "You are 97? Young for a Valorian. We live about 400 years, but each passing breeding season without a child feels like a door closing." Yuna thought carefully before speaking. "If our research could help your people, if Valorian women could have more chances, more choices, would that not be worth pursuing?" Lyra turned to face her. "It would be worth everything. But my government is skeptical. They believe I have been compromised by spending time with humans. They think I have lost my objectivity. Have you?" "No. I have gained perspective. There is a difference." Yuna nodded. "Then we need to make your case undeniable. We need data so strong that no one can dismiss it. Evidence so clear that even skeptics must accept it. We need to make your mind and a state. You would help me with this?" "Of course. Science is about truth, not politics. If the truth can help your people, then we should pursue it together." Lyra felt something warm in her chest. She had come to Earth alone, expecting to fight against deception. Instead, she had found allies who wanted nothing more than to share their knowledge. "Thank you, Dr. Kim. I will not forget this kindness. Please, call me Yuna. We have worked together too long for formality." Lyra smiled, something she had not done much in her life. "Then you must call me Lyra." They shook hands in the human way, two scientists, united by a common purpose. Over the next week, they compiled the most comprehensive study of human reproduction ever created for Alien Review. Birth statistics, medical technologies, social structures, cultural practices, genetic analyses. Nothing was left out. When it was finished, the report was over 300 pages long. It contained enough evidence to convince even the most stubborn critic, or so Lyra hoped. She prepared to send it to Valora, knowing that her entire career depended on how it was received. If they accepted her findings, she would be celebrated as a pioneer. If they rejected them, she would be dismissed as a fool. But either way, she would tell the truth. That was what scientists did. That was what she had learned from the humans. The message from the Valorian High Council arrived at midnight. Lyra read it alone in her hotel room, her face lit by the glow of her tablet. "Princess Lyra of House Valoran, you are hereby summoned to appear before the High Council within 30 standard days. Your extended research on Earth has raised concerns among senior members. Your continued absence is no longer acceptable. Return home immediately to address these matters." The message was signed by all 12 council members, including her own mother, the High Queen. Lyra set down the tablet and walked to the window. Seoul sparkled below her, millions of lights in a city that never truly slept. She had been here for nearly 2 months now. It was the longest she had ever spent away from home. She was not ready to leave. The next morning, she met with Ambassador Park Jun, Dr. Kim Yuna, and Han Dae in a private conference room. She showed them the message. "They want you back," Jun said after reading it. "That is not surprising. You are a princess. Your absence creates political complications." "The tone is concerning," Yuna observed. "It sounds like you are being called to defend yourself, not to share your findings." Lyra nodded. I have received communications from allies at home. The conservative faction is spreading rumors that I have been brainwashed by humans. They claim my research is fabricated. Some are even suggesting that I should be stripped of my scientific credentials. That is ridiculous, Day said angrily. You have done nothing but observe and report the truth. Truth is often unwelcome, Mr. Han. My findings challenge everything my people believe about biology. Some would rather destroy the messenger than accept the message. June leaned forward. What do you want to do, Princess? Earth will support whatever you decide. Lyra considered her options. She could return home immediately and face the council. She could present her research and hope they believed her. But without all of her evidence properly compiled, without every argument prepared, she might fail. And failure would mean more than personal embarrassment. It would mean her research would be buried, her findings dismissed, and her people would continue suffering through limited breeding seasons for generations to come. I need 1 more month, she said finally. 1 more month to complete my documentation and prepare my defense. I must return home with evidence so strong that no one can deny it. The council demanded you return immediately, Yuna pointed out. The council can wait. This is too important. June nodded slowly. Then we will help you make the most of that month. What do you need? Everything. More data. More interviews. More proof. I want to understand not just how humans reproduce, but how this ability has shaped your civilization. I want to show my people that human biology is not a curiosity but a model worth studying. The month that followed was the most intense of Lyra's life. She visited schools and learned how human children were educated continuously, not in seasonal bursts like Valorian youth. Teachers explained that constant population flow meant classes never had dramatic size changes. Education was stable. Society was stable. She visited elderly care homes and met humans who had lived full lives with multiple children, dozens of grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they had never imagined. The continuity of human families was remarkable. Generations connected to generations, without the gaps that plague Valorian lineages. She visited military installations and learned that human armies could always recruit new soldiers, always train new leaders, always maintain their strength. Valorian military forces suffered from generational gaps that left them vulnerable during certain periods. She visited businesses and observed that human economies did not experience the dramatic booms and busts that came with Valorian breeding seasons. Demand for baby products, housing, schools, and healthcare was constant and predictable. Economic planning was possible in ways Valorians could only dream of, and through it all, she grew closer to her human friends. June taught her about diplomacy, about the art of presenting difficult truths in acceptable ways. He helped her understand that facts alone were not enough. She needed to tell a story, to make her audience care about the implications of what she had discovered. Yuna taught her about scientific presentation, about organizing evidence in ways that built toward undeniable conclusions. She helped Lyra structure her report as a journey, leading readers from skepticism to acceptance, step by step. Day taught her about human heart. He invited her to his family dinners, introduced her to his friends, showed her the ordinary warmth of human connection. She learned that humans loved deeply, laughed freely, and cared for each other with a consistency that matched their reproductive biology. One evening, Day's sister Sue arrived at dinner with special news. Her face was glowing with happiness. I am pregnant, she announced. We just confirmed it today. The family erupted in celebration. Day's mother cried. His father opened a special bottle of wine. Even the teenage brother looked up from his games to offer congratulations. Lyra watched the scene with tears in her eyes. This moment, this simple announcement, would be impossible on Valora outside of a breeding season. The joy would be the same, but the timing would be limited, controlled by biology rather than choice. Sue noticed Lyra's expression and came to sit beside her. Are you all right, Princess? I am very all right, Lyra said. I am just grateful to be here for this moment. Thank you for sharing it with me. Sue took her hand. Day told me about your mission, about trying to help your people. I think what you are doing is wonderful. I do not know if I will succeed. It does not matter if you succeed immediately. What matters is that you try. Change takes time, but it starts with someone brave enough to tell the truth. Lyra squeezed her hand. You are very wise, Sue. I am just a pregnant woman who wants to see good things happen in the universe. They laughed together, and for a moment, the differences between their species did not matter at all. On the last night before her departure, Lyra stood on a balcony with June, Yuna, and Day. The city stretched out below them, endless and alive. I do not know when I will see you again, Lyra said. If the council rejects my findings, I may not be allowed to leave Valora for many years. Then we will wait for you, June said simply. Earth will not forget what you have done here. Whatever happens, Yuna added. You have already changed things. The knowledge you are bringing home cannot be unlearned. Even if they reject it now, others will ask questions. Others will seek the truth. Day handed her a small gift wrapped in paper. Inside was a photograph of his family, including Lyra, taken at the dinner when Sue announced her pregnancy. So you remember that you have friends here, he said. Lyra held the photograph close. I could never forget. The next morning, she boarded her shuttle and left Earth behind. As the planet grew smaller in her window, she felt both fear and hope battling in her chest. She was going home to fight a war of ideas. She did not know if she would win, but she knew she had to try. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest meeting space in known civilization. Representatives from 12 star systems sat in rising circles around a central stage. Thousands of beings filled the viewing galleries above. Cameras broadcast the proceedings to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Princess Lyra stood in the center of it all, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her life. But she was not alone. Behind her, Ambassador Park Jun sat in the Earth delegation section. Beside him was a small group of human scientists who had traveled across the stars to support her presentation. Dr. Kim Yuna was there, along with Nurse Choi Mina and several others who had helped with her research. The High Queen of Valora, Lyra's own mother, presided over the assembly. Her face was cold and formal, giving nothing away. Princess Lyra of House Valoran, the Queen announced. You have requested time before this council to present findings from your extended research on Earth. You have been accused by some of spreading false information and abandoning scientific objectivity. This is your opportunity to respond. You may begin. Lyra took a deep breath. The moment had arrived. Months of work, weeks of preparation, a lifetime of questions, all came down to this presentation. Thank you, Your Majesty. Honored delegates, I stand before you not as a princess but as a scientist. 4 months ago, I traveled to Earth to investigate a claim that seemed impossible. That humans reproduce year-round, without seasonal limitation. I expected to find exaggeration. I expected to find error. Instead, I found truth. She activated her display, and the first images appeared. Charts showing human birth rates across every month of the year. The numbers were consistent, unwavering, undeniable. These are birth statistics from Earth's major hospitals. As you can see, human births occur every single day, in every season, in every climate zone. There is no dormant period. There is no breeding season. Humans simply reproduce continuously. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates shook their heads in disbelief. Others leaned forward with interest. But quantity is not the remarkable part, Lyra continued. What truly sets humans apart is control. They have developed technologies and social practices that allow them to choose when and whether to have children. They can prevent pregnancy when they are not ready. They can enhance fertility when they struggle to conceive. They can plan their families like architects plan buildings. She showed images of fertility clinics, birth control options, prenatal care facilities. The evidence was overwhelming. I visited their hospitals. I witnessed births. I spoke with families who had planned their children years in advance. I met couples who waited until their careers were stable before becoming parents. I saw elderly couples who had been together for decades. Their love sustained not by hormonal cycles but by genuine emotional connection. The chamber was silent now. All attention focused on the young princess and her impossible claims. Some have accused me of being brainwashed. Some have suggested that humans deceived me. I understand these doubts. I shared them once. But the evidence speaks for itself. She turned to face the human delegation. I did not discover this truth alone. I had help from scientists who opened their laboratories to me. Doctors who showed me their patients with permission. Ordinary people who invited me into their homes and families. Humans did not hide from my questions. They answered them with honesty and patience. June nodded slightly, acknowledging her words. And what I learned, Lyra continued, her voice growing stronger, is that human biology is not a curse or a blessing. It is simply different. And that difference has shaped their civilization in ways we are only beginning to understand. She spent the next hour presenting her full research. Population stability, economic predictability, social continuity, educational consistency. Every aspect of human society had been influenced by their reproductive biology. Humans spread across their world and then into space not because they are stronger or smarter than other species, Lyra concluded. They spread because they never had to stop. While other species wait for breeding seasons, humans keep moving, keep building, keep growing. Their potential is unlimited because their biology has no limits. She paused, gathering herself for the final part of her presentation. I began this journey by challenging humans to prove their claims. Ambassador Park Jun accepted my challenge with grace and confidence. He invited me to see the truth for myself. I have seen it, I have documented it, and now I present it to you. She looked directly at her mother, the High Queen, her face showing no emotion. I know some will reject these findings. Change is frightening. Accepting that another species has abilities we lack is painful. But science is not about comfort. Science is about truth. And the truth is that humans have achieved something remarkable. We should not fear them for it. We should learn from them. She stepped back from the central podium. I have answered the challenge I gave. The question now is whether this council has the courage to accept the answer. Thank you. The chamber exploded in noise. Delegates shouted questions and arguments. Some demanded immediate dismissal of the findings. Others called for expanded research. The Valorian conservative faction looked furious. The progressive scientists looked vindicated. Through it all, Lyra stood calmly, waiting. Finally, the High Queen raised her hand, and silence fell. The council will deliberate in private, she announced. Princess Lyra, you will await our decision. Lyra bowed and left the chamber. June and the human delegation met her in a private waiting room. You were wonderful, Yuna said, embracing her in the human way. The evidence was wonderful. I simply presented it. The council looked shaken, June observed. That is either very good or very bad. We will know soon enough. They waited for 3 hours. Lyra paced. The humans sat quietly, offering support simply by being present. Finally, a messenger arrived. The council has reached a decision. Princess Lyra is requested to return to the chamber. Lyra walked back to the central stage. The galleries were still full. The delegates still watched. But something had changed. The anger had faded from many faces, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. The High Queen stood. The council has reviewed Princess Lyra's research. We find her methods sound, her evidence compelling, and her conclusions supported. Human reproductive biology is hereby recognized as a unique and remarkable adaptation worthy of serious study. Lyra felt her heart stop. Furthermore, the Queen continued. The Council approves the establishment of formal scientific exchange programs between Valora and Earth. Human medical knowledge will be studied for potential applications to Valorian biology. Princess Lyra is appointed to lead this initiative. Applause broke out in the chamber. Not universal, but significant. Many delegates were standing. Many were cheering. Lyra looked at her mother. For just a moment, she saw something warm in the Queen's eyes. Pride, perhaps. Or something close to it. Finally, the Queen added, The Council recognizes Ambassador Park Jun and the human delegation for their cooperation and openness. Earth has demonstrated good faith in sharing their knowledge. The galactic community welcomes them as valued partners. Jun stood and bowed in the human style. The chamber applauded again. Afterward, Lyra found herself surrounded by congratulations. Scientists who had doubted her now praised her courage. Politicians who had opposed her now sought her favor. The world had changed in a single afternoon. But the moment she treasured most came later that evening, when she stood with Jun, Yuna, and the others at a window overlooking the stars. "You did it," Jun said quietly. "We did it," Lyra corrected. "I could not have succeeded without you. What happens now?" Lyra smiled, something she did much more often these days. "Now, the real work begins. I will build bridges between our peoples. I will help my species learn from yours. And perhaps someday, Valorian children will be born whenever their parents choose, not just when biology allows. That is a beautiful dream. Thanks to you, it is no longer just a dream, it is a possibility." She looked out at the stars, billions of points of light representing billions of worlds, each with their own biology, their own limitations, their own potential. Humans had shown the galaxy what freedom looked like. Not freedom from nature, but harmony with it. Control, choice, and endless possibility. And Lyra, who had once doubted everything about humanity, now carried their greatest lesson in her heart. Love does not need a season. Life does not need permission. And the future belongs to those brave enough to reach for it. The challenge had been answered. The truth had been revealed, and across the galaxy, everything was about to change.